Okay, our problem number 3. We're given 2 points. Unfortunately, we got a nasty little fraction, but that's all right. And they want us to find what's the midpoint between them, what's the distance, and what's the slope if there was a line between those 2 points. So let's start with the midpoint. Remember, think of your midpoint as like your average. I'd like somebody said that. So when you're doing averages, you're adding together and dividing by 2, since there's 2 things. So I'm going to add let's start with the x. I want to know the midpoint between the x values and then find the midpoint between the y values. So do them one at a time. So I'm going to add the x values, 2/3 and 3. 2/3 plus, I'm going to write 3 as 9/3, okay? Don't let that freak you out. So I just did transform that right away because I know I'm going to have common denominators. So that's going to be equal to 11/3, and now I want half of that. I want the average. So multiply that by 1/2. So that's going to be 11/6, which is basically, well, how about it's exactly 1 5/6. Now I could do a quick little check, make sure I'm figuring this formula and I'm doing it correctly. I'm going to graph on a little number line. I'm going to graph 2/3, so that's 0, that's 1, 2, and 3. 2/3 is right about here, and 3 is right here. So just eyeballing the midpoint, you can see the midpoint's going to be not quite to 2, it's going to be a little less than 2, and well, voila, 1 5/6 is a little less than 2. So it looks like we're good with the x. So that's the x midpoint, and the y, I'll do the same thing. -2, and don't get thrown up by the negatives, just stick with it. Add the 2 together, oops. That equals -6 times 1/2, so it's going to be -3. So then there's your midpoint. The x value equals x equals y. Now the distance is a little different, right? The distance, remember, if you can, we derive the distance formula using the Pythagorean Theorem. Now I'm not going to draw it out again, but you should be able to do that if you had 2 points and kind of refresh your mind. You're like breaking the points up into the x, the distance between the x values, and the distance between the y values. But if you can just remember, hey, it's basically the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then we want to find just c. That's going to be taking the square root of everything. So it's going to be the square root of a squared plus b squared. So a representing, you know, the distance between the x, and b the distance between the y. So hopefully that can help you kind of remember it. So it's going to be, to find the distance between the 2 x values, you have to subtract. So it's going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then the square root of that, whoop, that's going to be the distance. So let's just kind of take our time. So it's going to be 3 minus 2/3. So once again, it's going to be 9/3 minus 2/3. So that's going to be 7/3 squared. And then y2 is -4. I'll write this one out. -4 minus, I'm going to put the -2 in parentheses, squared. And then all of that square rooted. I'm just not going to write the whole thing. So -4 and -2 is +2, so it's -2 squared, which is 4, and 7/3 squared, which is 49/9. And all that square root. Now I want to combine those 2 together, so don't think of it as 4, think of it as I want a common denominator of 9. So I'm going to rewrite 4 as 36/9, right? Cross it off. Now I can add those 2 together, 49 and 36, 1585. So that's going to be, oh my gosh, I'm getting sloppy, square root of 85/9, which you can do the square root of 9. You can separate that out into, I'll write it down this way, square root of 85 divided by square root of 9, which is square root of 85 divided by 3. And if you think about it, you can't factor out square root of 85 anymore. You could try to think about it, but that's as far as you can go. So that's your distance. And then your slope, well, that's just simply going to be rise over run. So the rise, we already calculated out, y2 minus y1. We decided that was -4 that was negative 2, right? Negative 4 minus a negative is plus. And then this run we decided was 7/3. So it's negative 2 divided by 7/3, which is really negative 2 times 3/7, which would be negative 6/7 for your slope. I hope I didn't go too fast. So that's number 3. A lot of calculation going on there.